What's the smartest thing you've ever seen someone do during a D&D campaign? Part 4. The rule set was D&D, 3rd edition. The setting was a large room with several open windows atop a very tall tower. It was a few rounds into a major fight, and a higher level enemy rogue was really causing problems. She had been grabbing weapons and wands from us and tossing them out the windows, and was really hard to hit. We were losing. The cleric's initiative came up. The player pondered things for a bit and then cast command, the spell that lets him give a single word instruction that the target must obey if possible. The DM rolls for the rogue to save against the spell, and she fails it. DM says, "Okay, what is the command?" The cleric's player grins wickedly and says auto defense strat. The DM pauses for a moment, and then wordlessly looks up the word on the computer. He turns back to the map and flicks the rogue's mini out of the tower. Then rolls the massive falling damage. Splat. Dead instantly. There was much laughing and rejoicing. The DM then read aloud the definition. Auto defenestrat, verb, to hurl oneself from a window. When the heroes were told they could have any reward that was within the king's power, the thief and the group waited patiently while everyone else asked for the most powerful magic items in the king's armory. In the end, when pressed, the thief said he didn't want any physical reward. Instead, he asked for land and a title of lordship. "You surprise me," the king said. "You are a renowned thief and adventurer. What would you do with land and responsibilities when the entire world is your oyster?" "I was only a thief by necessity, and an adventurer by convenience. I would like to retire in my prime and lay down roots. Perhaps start a legacy that my children and grandchildren can depend on. Why expect my posterity to suffer as I did? Have to learn to take by force and guile what can be nurtured and shared? This is the world I want to create, the one I would have chosen for myself had I the means to do so." If my gaming group of many years was here to answer, they could probably come up with a better idea. But for now, the smartest thing that comes to mind was done by the DM. I was but a lowly player. At the time, the PCs were traveling through a wintry landscape. The DM had made a point to describe the cold, the uncomfortable conditions, and the blizzard that had stopped the party cold in its tracks, pun intended, a few days before. So the PCs get accosted by a mixed bag of kill-on-sight humanoids, orcs, ogres, and I think there was a troll in there too. Well, during the fight the mage gets this bright idea to cast Expeditious Retreat and improved invisibility on himself, in order to do some touch attacks on the ogre. The DM asks him, "You remember that there's about a foot of snow on the ground, right?" The mage answers, "Yeah, but that won't slow down Expeditious Retreat." DM raises an eyebrow. "Not my point, but okay. You sure you want to move up onto the ogre?" Mage, "Yep." DM says, "Okay, you're up to the ogre now. And that took all your movement, didn't it? You're done for this round." Mage, "Yeah, but next round he's getting vampiric touch." The DM goes on, as if nothing is amiss, until that ogre's turn comes up. He rolls a d20, and gets a decent number, 15 or something. DM says to the mage, "Okay." The ogre turns to you, squints, and swings at you. DM rolls an 18, enough to hit even with the improved invisibility. Squishy mage plus ogres to hit bonus. Mage, "Hey. How does that ogre know I'm there if I'm invisible?" DM, "You used Expeditious Retreat at full movement. Everyone on the battlefield watched this rooster tail of disturbed snow go right up to that ogre and stop. And he made his intelligence check. All that ogre knows is something weird he doesn't understand just happened right in front of him. So he smacked it." I doubt this is the smartest thing I've ever seen in a D&D campaign, but I can tell you about one thing I always remember. When I played often, I was usually running a thief or bard. One thief in particular, an elf named Orion Starmane, seemed to be genuinely lucky, and he was willing to take a lot of risks. Our party was still at relatively low levels when we came across a rather large and abandoned hoard of dwarven gold. It could have easily unbalanced the campaign, and Orion was worried it would ruin his friends, who were looking at buying expensive enchanted weapons and armor, and even discussing retirement. Well, I'll be honest. He was worried it would ruin his fun. He didn't want them to leave. He was also quite greedy. When we were in town, healing and getting repairs, Orion found a dwarven craftsman and paid handsomely for 5 intricately crafted axes with markings and language matching the dwarven clan that had originally stashed the gold. One night, after a session, I hung around with the DM. Our characters had just had a night of eating and drinking heavily. Orion crept into each of the party's rooms at the inn, including his room. He stole the gold and left behind an axe, embedded in the wall above the bed. All of this was accomplished with skill checks and dice rolls. And a bag of holding. The DM ruling, before I started, was that any failed check on stealth or skill would result in the character waking, to be addressed at the beginning of our next session. So the players thought the DM had pulled a trick, although she claimed the module contained a chance of the dwarfs coming back to reclaim their gold. So we were angry at the DM, but the campaign was saved, and Orion was rich. And that party was nervous around any signs of unknown dwarfs for the rest of our time together. I never did tell them what had actually happened. My party was adventuring into a dungeon, and we came upon an enormous cavern filled to the brim with cotones, menfish, which are exactly what they sound like. There were several hundred of them, and my friends and I were panicking. Menfish are perhaps the most hated creature in 1st edition. Created by Gary Gygax himself, they are designed to be as difficult as possible. They have no weakness and are immune to some of the most effective spells to subdue large groups of creatures, like Entangle. Their spellcasters throw lightning and they wield harpoons. So, our party was shocked when the DM threw a group of 200 after us. Shuffling our sheets nervously, we consulted the spell book. Useless, useless, use, my friend muttered. Wait a second, what is the cavern made of? Solid rock, the DM replied, a slight smirk crossing his face, certain we would not be able to beat this formidable foe. My druid cast stone to mud. Our dungeon master looked amazed. He pulled out his dice, but it was clear what his verdict would be. Thousands of cubic feet of dirt crashed down upon the menfish army as we chortled with glee, ready to seize a veritable mound of treasure. And so, we had defeated an enemy far above us in power, killing an army with a single spell. I was playing an Adventurers League epic at a convention with a group of friends. It was called Reclamation of Plan and continued a storyline that had started in season 1 of the Adventurers League modules. My character, Fenric, was a wood elf assassin that was not a particularly nice individual. However, he was born and raised in Flan and had a very rough time when the city was taken. He vowed to fight to reclaim his home, which is why he ended up forcibly taking leadership of the tier 3 team he was a member of. There were 6 others on the team, all individuals he had met previously. On their first mission, they had to eliminate a guard post to create an entry into the city. They were given a rather large bomb to do so. Well, Fenric, being the leader and, by far, the fastest of his group, sought to end the battle quickly. So, he told everyone to come at the target location from 2 sides. Their target was inside a prison on the other side of a building. So, Fenric took the bomb and ran. He ran as fast as he could, quickly turning the corner and sprinting toward the room the bomb needed to be planted in. As he approached the door, he realized his enormous mistake. Coming down the hallway, one that was behind the building, not viewable from their starting point, were about 30 enemy soldiers. He was quickly swarmed and they began stabbing at him, throwing punches, grabbing him, anything they could do to stop him. Fenric knew he was done for. But this was for Flan, for his home. So, he armed the bomb and tossed it into the room. He was quickly overcome by the enemy, their massive bodies swallowing him whole. But then, he heard a voice. The voice of Gariel, the team's cleric. I need to see you, Gariel shouted over the din of battle. Fenric, with his last bit of strength, planted his feet against the wall and pushed with everything he had. He reached out, desperate to get his outstretched hand in view of his friend. His hand hit sky and he blinked, finding himself in a strange place, unable to move. It only lasted for a moment and then he was back, standing on the ground, surrounded by scorched bodies, the guard post decimated by a massive explosion. It wasn't until later that Fenric found out what happened. When Gariel had called out, he was able to see the rogue's fingers stretching out above the enemy. That was all he needed. So, Gariel banished Fenric. In our starting campaign, Princes of the Apocalypse, There is a side quest where the players confront a group of bandits who have captured a black bear in a cage, which has a large padlock on the door. The bear is starved and poised to attack anyone who approaches. Having no thief to pick the lock, they devise this plan. The druid uses wild shape to morph into a squirrel, sneak behind the cage, and uses speak with animals to recruit the bear with a promise of healing and food. The bear agrees, and she asks the bear to wait until the signal, which will be a shout from the woods across from the cage. She sneaks the bear a snack. The mage, in hiding, casts Ice Bolt on the lock and hits it, freezing and embrittling the metal. The warrior gives the signal from the woods, and the mage shoots off the frozen lock with a well-placed crossbow bolt. The bandits, chasing the warrior into the woods, are blindsided by the enraged bear, and sandwiched between him and the warrior, who turns and fights. They are destroyed, and the bear, healed and fed as promised, joins the druid as a fearsome companion. Now the druid is slowly building an army of woodland creatures to fight at her side.
Hi guys, I'm really hoping to get more into doing the outros here. If you like the video, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, do the usual stuff that all the YouTubers tell you to do. But no, before I go, thanks for watching.